of so many women right now. We're good?
Yep.
All right. So, so that everybody knows, during this video I have a live audience here. Some of my patients, invited them in. That way I could field any questions with them. And one of the first questions that I always get is that I have a patient here that had a friend that was diagnosed with cancer, correct? And they found it through mammography, and they detected it early, they told her. And because they detected it early, they were able to get it all, treat it more effectively, supposedly, all these things. And the reality is, we want to almost wish that she should have never had it detected. She should be one of the ones in the category where it was not an aggressive breast cancer, that it was one of the overdiagnosis patients. The people that are being treated improperly and being treated for cancers that would never have grown to the point where they caused her any harm. Because that would actually mean she was healthier, that her body was going to be able to keep that cancer or that abnormal cell growth at bay, to where, and most of those people end up having, you know, they die of other health-related causes. You know, what would be beautiful is if we used all testing that we do. We want to do a testing procedure, other than mammography, we want to do a testing procedure that doesn't cause cancer, doesn't cause any harm, but can detect a cancer or abnormal health, thus initiating the person to take action and change the things that allow that cancer to grow. So, and we'll talk about the harms, that if she, I don't know if she went through radiation, if she went through chemotherapy, or if she went through lumpectomy or did hormone treatments, what type of treatment did she take, and what could she be doing to, oftentimes, some of these types of cancers, patients aren't given very simple lifestyle changes that could almost quadruple, going through one of the studies that they showed simple things could quadruple a woman's survival to 10 years.
Things like what, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, you're going to go through it. You're going to ask those, and this will be YouTube Live. Please ask questions, so it's more about the people in front of me than the people on YouTube in the future. So, but combating cancer, I like this quote here. The art of healing comes from nature, not from the physician. Therefore, the physician must start from nature with an open mind. See, I really believe I should say the spirit of what I want to bring about is that I believe, you know, it maybe you can call it Mother Nature. I can say it's our Father, our Lord in heaven. He's the one that's given us everything on earth for a purpose. We need to figure out what it's there for. And you'll see some of the research studies actually being done, things like dandelion root now. Dandelion root has been shown in animal studies and has been used through generations to treat people with liver dysfunction and cancer. And they've shown through animal studies now confirming that it is very anti-cancer and it kills cancer cells. You'll find out some other plant-based medicines that were just as effective as some of the drugs, or more than doubling to quadrupling again somebody's survival. And if there was a drug, they'd be promoting that all over the place. But because it's something that you could literally do at home on your own or find in your backyard, it's not promoted. So we want to almost push, not for, hey, let's push for more screenings or early detection and these things. There's a place and time for that. But the reality is we should be actually promoting, you know what, let's fund how people can figure out how to treat their own diseases through nature. What are the plants? Everything's here for a purpose. What is that purpose? Let's figure it out. Let's find out. I mean, when you look at medicinal mushrooms, mushrooms are often used in about 40% of pharmaceutical drugs are either derived from a medicinal mushroom or they're synthetically made to be similar to a medicinal mushroom. Almost 40%. But not many people, you know what I mean? But if you think about it, there's about 100 and I forget how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of different types of mushrooms, but we've only identified like a few thousand. So it's like we need science to really figure out what are all these mushrooms. I walk through and I'll find some and I'll post pictures of them online and stuff like that to their mycology groups, and they're like, we don't know about that one. That's an LBM. It's a little brown mushroom. Just don't eat it because we don't know whether it's good for us or bad for us. So somebody needs to be the first one in line, right? All right. I always wonder, like, how do we figure out that mushroom was healthy and edible? Did we watch the deer and be like, okay, the deer ate it. He didn't die. Now we can track that deer for days and figure out the deer dies. If the deer dies, we don't eat it. If the deer lives, who was the first person to experiment? So, you know, in 1971, we started the war on cancer, Richard Nixon, but really, where are we today? Are we ahead of the ball or are we behind it still?
Way behind.
Way behind it. The number of people, I mean, it just is simply put, in proportion even to the population, the growth of the population, are we seeing more people die of cancer and more children being diagnosed at earlier ages, or less, since 1970? You know what I mean? More. So is what we're doing right now working? No, it's not. So we need to take that into consideration when we see all these claims by Susan G. Komen and different organizations promoting whether it be mammography, and I'm going to hit on that because it's kind of, that's what October is. Men, you get your month, Movember, whatever, grow a mustache to fight prostate cancer. I'm like, I want to like shave my beard off. Like, you know, I'm going to shave my arms, my legs, everything. Just be like, I'm going to do in complete opposition to what the medical community wants to promote. Not really. Should we do a video of like, wild dog for Movember? Okay, I did that for triathlons. It made you feel really fast in the water. All right, so U.S. cancer care delivery is in crisis. Anyone sitting here, if you want me to print these articles, I'll print them for you. You guys can take them home. You ladies can. It's okay, because I use guys as a general term, and I hope I don't offend anybody. I always think about that with the girls and ladies. So, U.S. cancer care delivery is in crisis, and this is actually a National Academies of Sciences review. All right, some 200-some pages in this report, actually 315 pages in this report. All right, I've only read parts of this report, but in this article in Reuters, it's very simple. It says many U.S., and you can read it right here, cancer treatment has grown so complex, many U.S. doctors can't keep up with new information and are offering incorrect treatments, failing to explain the options, and leaving patients to coordinate their own care. According to a report released on Tuesday by the Institute of Medicine. That's scary, is it not? Mm-hmm. Take that into consideration and then also think about these other significant quotes I like to use from here. Core competencies in caring for patients, that physicians lack core competencies in caring for patients with cancer. A doctor from Los Angeles states from the School of Medicine and Public Health at the University of California, she states, patients need to be asking, is my doctor giving me appropriate treatment? So let me ask anybody that's ever, just think about this. Now, go into, if you were a cancer patient or somebody you know, if they went into their oncologist here in my hometown or anywhere else and sat down with a doctor and be real quick, I read this article, I want to ask, are you giving me appropriate treatment? What do you think every oncologist is going to say?
Absolutely.
Do you think they're going to be like, God, man, I wish you wouldn't have read that article learning about the Academy of Sciences saying we don't really know what we're doing? They're not, so it's like, they do need to be asking that question, but the only way to find the answer to that question is do your own research or seek out somebody that is going to either help you dive into the research and find the answer for yourself. All right, there was a cancer, a tumor marker that one of my patients was, she was going through a CT scan looking at after a lumpectomy and removing a tumor in her chest. She had this SUV number, okay, which can range from like 2 on up to 40 some. I dive in the research for her because she wants to have a consult just to pick out strategies she can do for herself to start improving her health, her life, her longevity, quadrupling her survival rate. All right, so I dived in the research, and I hadn't heard of that number before in this test, so I start researching it, and I find peer-reviewed medical literature on it. I find that a 2 to a 10 typically means you have a very, very low chance of that being any type of true cancer. And then it was like a 13 on up to like 43. More than likely, it was some form of actual cancer and aggressiveness. This test also can be higher due to recent lumpectomy or recent surgery or recent biopsy. When did they do it? Basically right after the biopsy. It was a 2.8. And she went through radiation because they said it was cancer because it was above a 2.5. But the research said It needed to be way above that. And the reality is, I sat down with her. She was already starting the radiation therapy. And I sat down with her, and I broke that down to her. One, she was kind of upset. The doctor never explained the number, just said she had cancer. But yet the CT scan said it didn't confirm cancer. It said possibility of recent lump or a biopsy or possibility of cancer. There's the two options. What came right before that test? Well, the biopsy. So there's no confirmation. And then her test was so in that range where, number one, I feel like the doctor should have sat down with her and said, hey, listen, normally if it's slightly above 2.5, we consider it cancer, even though the research says it needs to be close to 10 or above, on up to 40-some. That's when you're really likely to actually have cancer. You're 2.5, but you're 2.8, so you're 0.3 above. So what do you want to do? Do you want to treat this like cancer, or do you want to say, it's probably not, let's not go through radiation that could actually initiate cancer cells? You know what I mean? And number one, I think the value that I handed her in that consultation was simple. It was like, well, again, kind of like your friend, we want to almost wish and hope that she really didn't have any type of cancer. It's sad that she had to go through unnecessary treatments. But if she didn't have cancer truly, she was stronger, she was healthier. Do you follow me? So it would be better to be lied to at that moment than not, or not given the full truth. Or it should have been, the doctor should have, listen, you really have a very, very, very low chance of this being any type of aggressive cancer. Therefore, you can rest assured that, it's not going to progress and harm you and kill you. At least give her peace of mind through that test. Do you follow me? That test was used almost just to push her and not explain. So, I don't know. I hope everybody understands that. Here's another thing. Just over 1.6 million new cancer cases are diagnosed each year in the United States. By 2030, that number will be 2.3 million and will be as the population grows or ages. The nation will be short by 2020, 2,500 to 4,080 oncologists. That number speaks volumes about what we're not doing.
Right.
We are not preventing cancer. If we're going to be short thousands of oncologists, I would rather us initiate all these different strategies to actually help women know what we could do to prevent cancer, never get it, to allow us to have a country that has such a low cancer rate that some of these doctors got to go find start a farming business or something, you know what I mean? Start scavenging the wild wilderness for medicinal mushrooms and then start a natural cancer clinic. It's just to think that we're not going to start processes, programs, strategies to reduce our toxic burden in our environment and other things to say, we're going to just keep causing cancer. We know so many things that we could do to prevent cancer in the first place, such as stop the spraying of chemicals on our food supply. Simple things could significantly reduce the risk of cancer and the need for all those oncologists. So what causes cancer? I believe that if one understands their disease, their chance of healing is far greater. How many times does a patient actually go in and have a consultation with somebody that says, hey, this is cancer, this is why you have it, or these are the possibilities of why you have it, this is how it grows. If you understood it, you could say, okay, I'm going to start eliminating that contributing factor. I'm going to eliminate that contributing factor. I'm going to start this that helps me in battling or boosting my immune system. I'm going to start that detoxification process because we know that toxins are a contributing factor. But we don't have anybody sit down and do that. You've seen a friend, you've had somebody, family. What was the strategy?
Just to start treatment immediately.
What was the treatment? So do you mind if you're not on camera? So she had a child diagnosed with cancer. Basically said, push through the system as quickly as possible. We got to start treatment right away. The treatment strategy was chemo and radiation. Anything else?
Not anything else. They didn't even give us any nutritional things.
Nothing. And I've had a patient that I was working with that had come to me in the clinic I was working with down in Florida. And this child with a brain tumor, chemotherapy doesn't work. Sadly, that child, that teenager is gone, was gone in a matter of 2 years. I'm sitting there saying you need fruits and vegetables, you need to be juicing kale, you need to be doing all these things to boost your immune system, to increase your nutrition. I mean, they estimate upwards of 30 to 40% of cancer patients die of malnutrition. Malnutrition. So how important is nutrition? Could save the life possibly, or extend the life of 30 to 40% of cancer patients. It's really darn important. But his oncologist told the parents nutrition has nothing to do with cancer, and that on the way to chemotherapy and things, don't eat anything, but when you leave, get him McDonald's and always just get him the Biggie fries, get him a soft drink. He needs lots and lots of calories, because they figure that they waste away to nothing. They oftentimes almost starve to death because chemotherapy destroys the lining of their intestines and their mouth, esophagus, the rear end, everything. So then they say you got to be just fattening them up. They're like, we want to fatten them up so that they can live on their fat storage for a little bit longer before they die. Like, that was that doctor's. That is not an expert. There's some other names that I'd like to use, but I won't. So cancer is a functional repair tissue. Great little article, PubMed, cancer is a functional repair tissue. When a wound occurs, growth and repair genes, genetic expression actually changes in those cells. So when the surrounding cells are activated, if you cut yourself, the genes of those cells will change their expression. Rapid cellular growth will occur. Gene expression of that will occur. And then on top of that, cellular apoptosis can be temporarily turned off because we don't need any more cellular death after a trauma or injury. We need it to heal. We need those cells to replicate. We need them to grow and reconnect. Does that make sense? So the body's doing the right thing at the right time. And that's why now we're understanding more and more about cancer, that it's literally a cell or area of the body changing in a way for those cells to survive. So they go on here, and let me try and pick it out, and they look through. So if the wound, and a wound can be, most people think a wound is like a cut. But a wound is persistent due to chronic physical or radiation, electromagnetic fields, cell phones you could throw in there, trauma, particles, chemicals, carcinogens, toxic chemicals, heavy metals now, what is in our vaccines. And what do we see going on with childhood cancers? We look at biological things, so just aging. I don't believe aging, we weren't designed to just break down. He's given us a lot of things here on earth that we can utilize that literally are like a fountain of youth. What's really cool is the mushroom that I believe, I haven't dove into the research on cancer yet with it, but chaga, a mushroom, is the king of mushrooms, is known to increase and improve DNA repair. So women with these DNA mutations or improper DNA expression, HER2 or the BRCA1, BRCA2 gene, BRCA1 and 2 genes, they say you have this mutation, now we should cut your ovaries out and your breasts off so you don't get cancer in those regions. But prophylactic ovarectomy, if anybody online watching this in the future, you girls or ladies here, I want you to go and watch my video on Angelina Jolie. She went through a surgery to remove her breasts, remove her ovaries, but when you look at the peer-reviewed medical literature, what does it say? Every measure of a health status gets worse. Their lung cancer risk goes up. All cancers go up. Sexual dysfunction, dementia problems, obviously hormonal problems, all these, and cardiac problems. All these other health issues are increased by doing that procedure. But yet doctors do it, and at the time it was around 300,000, and it went up after she did that. And even in the original article where she was going in for having her ovaries removed, doctors applauded her for her courageousness. But in the article, if you read a little bit further, after the first little few sentences, it said that they actually didn't know what benefit this procedure held. It was just a theory. So I always joke around and I say, if we really want to do away with testicular cancer, because we got prostate and we got testicular cancer in November awareness. So there's a rubber band treatment that works really well for not allowing any man to ever die of testicular cancer. It's rubber band treatments. It's the forefront of medicine now, is just removing body parts so that you don't get cancer in there. Makes sense, right? There's nothing different about what I just said than having a woman's ovaries removed prophylactically so she doesn't get cancer in her ovaries. Do you get me? There's nothing different about it. But that's the insanity of the medical community right now. So, going on here, malignancies are not passive, mutated, useless masses. Rather, they are functional tissues produced by gene activation and secretions of other genetic factors in an effort to heal persistent wounds in the body. Based on this hypothesis and the research supporting it, current cancer treatments aimed at killing cancer cells only may be misguided. The logical extension of this hypothesis is that cancer treatment focused on wound healing by limiting causes of persistent wounds, providing repair cells, gene factors, and substrates required by repair cells may yield more fruitful results in treatments focused on killing cancer cells than killing cancer cells alone. Spontaneous regression of cancer, anybody heard of that? Spontaneous remission, spontaneous regression. That's called healing. At one moment, the stress and burden on the woman's life or the person's life was too great for their body to withstand disease process from growing. And then in another moment, maybe they changed jobs. Maybe they got out of a stressful situation. Maybe they got out of a different environment. Maybe they started getting adjusted by a chiropractor or changing their nutrition. They changed something in their life that reduced the burden on their body. Thus, their body had a greater ease in healing. And through that, healing occurred, and medicine calls it spontaneous regression. Standard therapies aimed at killing cancer cells should be limited to adjuvant that's in addition to something else. Status for limiting symptoms. Who wants to limit symptoms? And I'll talk about several different articles where leukemia, breast cancer drugs, prostate cancer drugs, approved by our FDA, didn't actually have evidence showing that the person's life was extended, only that their symptoms had decreased. That is it. And people weren't told the truth in that process. So, those treatments we use now, the cut, poison, and burn, the chemotherapy, the radiation, and the surgeries, should be limited to treating symptoms, buying time for the completion of wound healing process. So even if right now there was a tumor that was so great in its burden on a person's life that a surgery or radiation or chemotherapy had shrunk it or beat it back just a little bit, but also harm the person, what we need to view that as, and anybody out there watching this right now that has gone through cancer, you need to say, okay, now is time for me to stop whatever it was. It was I exposed to more radiation. Do I need to get away from electromagnetic fields and power lines? Do I need to stop breathing in particulate smoking? Do I need to get away from chemicals? Do I need to start a detox program? How do I complete wound healing and then stop the constant signaling of a need for wound healing? That is constant cell growth and cancer. Does that make sense to everybody? And I want you guys to shake heads no, yes or no, because that's one thing about live video or videos only. I'm always like, does everybody understand me? I don't know whether you do or not.
Don't the Cancer Centers of America, aren't they?
I've heard, so I had a patient.
Less they're trying to do with
Yes.
diet and stuff,
Yes.
so they're trying to.
Cancer Centers of America is probably right now one of the better, but yet certain things that I was working with a patient, and sadly this is the scenario. The husband changed his diet, lost weight, was exercising, begging his wife to get out and exercise and do things, was literally like on top of everything. He never missed his adjustments, but his wife, she'd sit on the couch, she wouldn't change her diet, she wouldn't do the things, even if Cancer Centers America got a little bit more change in her, but she didn't go all out. And only about, when you talk to a lot of people that work directly with a lot more people that want alternative treatments, that are ready for it, like they're literally like, if you're not ready to go all out for like a minimum of 2 years, I don't really want to work with you. If you're not ready to change your life, you're not ready to quit smoking, don't take the alternative. Like, you need to change everything. because you've already weakened your body to that point, and that's what's allowing the cancer to grow. But he would come back to me, and they'd go off to these cancer centers of America, even though it was better, and they used less chemo, and they did testing that would help her identify whether the chemo was going to help her or not. We'll talk about different tests that I would recommend somebody get if they are diagnosed with cancer. And what's cool is we could actually use some of these tests to see if before a tumor is ever detectable on the blood, on a mammogram or any other visualizing test, we could see, hey, we've got cancer markers going up. We can't find where the tumor is right now on any other test, but my body is becoming more and more of an environment that allows cancer to grow. We could utilize that ahead of time before a tumor is full blown and say, it's kind of like lighting a fire underneath somebody's rear end and saying, hey, your body is developing cancer right now. We should be saying your body is developing cancer right now. It is not full-blown cancer. You know what I mean? How much more powerful? But sadly, it's like we want to wait until medicine does this. They wait until they can see it, and they say, you have cancer. And when you say that, what are you willing to pay or do? Anything. So that's why it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why now there's a leukemia medication for children that's going to cost $475,000 for a single treatment. And economists say that's a steal. That's a bargain. It should be upwards of $600,000 to $700,000. That's how much a child's life is worth, and I agree. But that's profiteering. That's charging more for gasoline while Florida needs to evacuate because of an incoming hurricane. That's profiteering is what that is, pure and simple. And the reality is when I look at those very expensive drugs, mark my words, 10 years from now, we're probably going to find out that it was fraudulent. Because they mark up the prices because they know eventually they're going to get caught in their lies. And the reality is taking somebody's immune cells or their cells out of their body and their cancer cells and mixing them with and trying to change their cells and then inject them back in and expect those cells that they've changed suddenly to be like, woohoo, they're going to train all these other cells. It's like boot camp, you know what I mean? They go in there, they're like, okay, immune system, we figured it out what the cancer looks like. Here's how we go and fight it. No. It's too good to be true is what I think. So, greater survival after breast cancer in physically active women with high vegetable intake regardless of obesity. So even obese women were able to increase this. This is, we're starting off with the good stuff. What do we want to do? This is like 5 servings of fruits and vegetables though. 5 servings. You could eat 5 servings in one meal. You know what I mean? So all these different ER, so estrogen and progesterone positive, progesterone negative, estrogen negative, progesterone positive, with standard treatments, the mortality rate is way up there. Look what it did. So one that if an oncologist isn't keeping up with the current information and isn't recommending his patient at least eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, they have the deadliest cancer. Meanwhile, they could be below the one that they often say is the easiest to survive. I'm sure, I wish you know what I mean? It's like, sometimes I wonder what actual patients who've been diagnosed, women who've been diagnosed with breast cancer, think. Because I've had some not like me for bringing this type of information and then saying negative things about the person that they almost fell in love with because I love my oncologist. He's a good person. He goes to church. I agree, there's a lot of people that go to church, but in their practice in this world, they're not doing their best by their patients. And it may not be purposeful, but it may be, in my opinion, it is neglect. Because if they're going to hold themselves up, if they're going to be the great people of this world, and we're going to say that these doctors are greater than thou, and we need to believe everything they say, and why would that work that you're saying dandelion root is going to help me beat cancer? Why wouldn't my doctor tell me? He's the one who went to school for cancer, right? So they look at, and I'm like, there it is. Sadly, ER negative, PR negative would be the worst. Standard treatment says that one, this one. But 5 servings. What about 10? What about all? You know what I mean? It was nothing but fruits and vegetables, plant-based diet, right there. Boom, done. You know what I mean? That is huge, huge.
How many people would actually do that?
Exactly. But that's where they say a lot of times people who would be willing to go the alternative, willing to change everything, is only about 15%. I've seen cancer.
It's more expensive to buy all that stuff.
Out of pocket.
Yeah.
Out of pocket because insurance won't pay it, but insurance will pay for.
The medical pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Those things.
So let me give you an example. Since talk about the money. So the FDA approves a vaccine to fight prostate cancer. Costs $93,000. There was an insurance pre-check before they would accept the patient. Not, hey, is this the youngest person with the biggest? I don't know how you would judge the importance of an individual's life. You know what I mean? Who qualifies if you have to ration this? There's an insurance to make sure they had insurance. We wouldn't give it to a cash patient because we wanted to make sure that we can get our money. Wrong. So wrong. But it extended the lives of patients by 4 months. $93,000, 4 months. If anybody out there right now has just been diagnosed with prostate cancer watching this video, I promise you 5 months and it only costs you $100,000. It's a little bit of a discount. You know what I mean? Like I get, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I'm sarcastic about a serious subject, but that is, and just wait, I'm going to save the surprise for later about that specific treatment. So anti-proliferative effects of antioxidant activities of common vegetables comparative study. So this is the strategy, and that's where I literally tell people, like, what do people hire me for if they have cancer? To help them get healthy. I don't treat cancer. I help patients get healthy and go through the evidence, the information, sometimes just letting their mind rest at ease at night, knowing that their cancer is less harmful than what their doctor's telling them, and then strategize about the things that they can do at home, changes in their lifestyle that can quadruple their lifestyle, or life span, or not lifespan, I guess, survival. Gotta go back to that. This should be part of it. Watch this. So, 8 different cancer cell lines. Put them in a petri dish, take fruits and vegetables, basically juiced, and drip it over the top of these cancer cells and watch what happens. So, I know it's small, but control is basically like, I think it was a sugar. Tomatoes actually grew more. But what's interesting is tomatoes don't have a direct impact on killing cancer cells themselves if you drip it on there. But tomatoes don't feed cancer. Cooked tomatoes are actually anti-angiogenic, which means they suppress the ability for the cancer cells to form more blood vessels that bring them the energy and the sugar they need to grow exponentially. Something to grow exponentially, it needs a lot more. Why do we need children to be like they got bottomless pits, right? Their left leg is hollow and that's where they're storing all the food. My grandpa used to tell me. So, I mean, cancer cells can't grow exponentially until they form new blood vessels. Angiogenesis has to take place, the formation of blood vessels, to bring in extra nutrition or fuel for that fire to rage out of control. So, they're anti-angiogenic doesn't mean they don't have a, hand in the battle against cancer. But when you go down to the things that can actually kill cancer, so if you look at things like this, so this would be stomach cancer. Stomach cancer, look at these things that will kill it. Direct contact with the cancer cells. No growth, killing of those cancer cells. From radish, broccoli, cabbage, curly cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, yellow onions, green onions, leeks, and garlic. Stomach cancer patients should be said, juice those things. They'll burn going down, but I'll tell you what, I'd rather it not burn through my blood going through chemotherapy. I'd rather it burn a little bit going down into directly where it needs to go into the cancer cells. And then nutrifying the body.
Is it the same whether you juice it or eat it?
No, it wouldn't be. So juicing, the purpose of juicing in cancer therapies like the Gerson Institute is basically because you can't take in enough of raw fruits and vegetables because of the bulk of the fiber, so you're juicing things. And the reality is even Gerson talks about it's not your standard juicers, or the centrifugal spinning juicers that just tear it and extract basically a little bit of the nutrition and so it just separates pulp from water content. And then you have they're the grinding or the masticating type juicers, which are a little bit better. But even Gerson, that does the cancer therapies for juicing and coffee enemas, they say that is not appropriate for cancer therapy either. They do what's called the Norwalk juicer, and it's a triturator, and it literally cuts and grinds up. It literally comes almost into a paste as it comes out, and then you compress it and squeeze it out, and it becomes like the difference between drinking a juice and drinking a V8, kind of thickness. You can taste and you can feel the difference in that. So my wife and I, just because of what I adhere to and what I encourage, I want to be like, listen, if I want to encourage patients to do this, I want to see the same value in it, and I spent the money. It's $2,500 for a juicer. But that's cheap compared to $93,000 for 4 months of life. A triturating juicer from Norwalk would give a man longer. And what's crazy is, I didn't even put it in here, we'll do that next month, but literally they took cancer patients that didn't want to do typical treatment and said, okay, let's watch you and let's change your diet. Guess what? They changed genetic expression, they stopped cancer cell growth, and they even reversed it. Just changing their diet, they could reverse prostate cancer. What about juicing? What about, you know what I mean? Those are the strategies we should go to first. Do the testing necessary to see if it progresses even after all these massive lifestyle changes, which to me, it's almost no way if you do at all. And then say, hey, insurance, I'm going to save you a lot of money. You're not going to have to pay for that darn drug. It's $475,000. I'm going to do this. I just need the money to be able to go and get the juicer, to get the raw fruits and vegetables, to get the medicinal, you know what I mean? But our lobbying efforts of pharmaceutical industries don't allow our insurance companies to do that. Our government won't change in that direction. So to sum it up, very simply, you look at garlics and leeks are up in the garlics, leeks, Brussels sprouts, green onions. So probably the two best. The only one that was a flip-flop, garlic was the strongest. That's why I love wild garlic. It has more allicin in it, a chemical anti-cancer, lowers blood pressure, phenomenal wilderness remedy that I love. So garlic was the top. But these are the ones tested. These are the common fruits and vegetables. But the reality is, how many people load up on garlic? How many people load up on onions? Carmen, I know you do, and a few of us sitting here, but most people don't. It's like, I'll get a tomato and cucumber and a head of lettuce, iceberg lettuce, which isn't even, you know what I mean? It's like the stuff that's not really anti-cancer we eat more of. But we don't load up on these things. So a strategy, if a cancer strategist like myself, you know what I say? Here it is. Which one of these I would have loved if they did all cancers? And they should, because they have this evidence. And then they should literally say, hey, you have prostate cancer. Here's your chart. Have fun with it. There's the ones that kill it. You have Brussels sprouts, and you have garlic that kill it, big time. You have green onions that significantly suppress it. You have broccoli, which broccoli sprouts should be done, not just broccoli. So you should do all these. And then there's your strategy. Here's your food. Try to incorporate at least one of the ones that kill it every single meal and get as much in you as you possibly can. You know? So, best fruits against cancer. Same type of study, basically. Pineapple was way up here, and there's a few others way up there. Peaches, apples, things like that. But to simplify it in time, lemons. So the concentration here, how much they had to pour over, and then the amount of cells dying and proliferation, which means growth of cancer cells, how much it was suppressed.
I've always heard that the more acidic your body is, the more cancer grows in
Yes.
acid-based body.
There's certain types, bloodborne cancers, more alkaline environments, and parasympathetic supply or parasympathetic dominant and neurological dominance in those types of cancers, and then acidic environments do. And you look at what drives the acidic environment, and acidic environment may be the cause of the wound, the constant damage. Do you follow me? Mm-hmm. And there's other contributing components to it as well. But yes, alkalinity, and I love alkaline water for a treatment type of thing or in a strategy to significantly enhance. But to me, I don't go after the alkaline water because I'd rather get all of it through my fresh fruits and vegetables, through my own garden, through the things that the way we should have gotten it and should be getting it. But in that immediate moment, there's value to alkalizing your body as quickly as possible. Does that make sense? With alkaline water. So, but cranberries. But a lot of these things like lemons and cranberries, they'll alkalize you.
Lemons?
They will. Even though they're acidic, they have the opposite effect on the body in alkalizing us. So cranberries are the best. So but not like craisins with a bunch of sugar on it.
Right.
So juicing those things, that's what people should be doing. Go ahead.
I have a problem though with fruits, because if I get too much acid, I get like a bladder infection, and it's not a bladder infection, but they call it cystitis or something like that, and it is really painful, so I cannot do a lot of acid.
So you want to do a little bit, as much as you can, to help
I do like
prevent.
apples or applesauce or
Yep.
something like that.
In those circumstances, what you want to do is then say, how can we figure out how to get my body in the position or shape or adjustments to your spine, different things like that we've been working on, hopefully then. And I see a lot of people, I mean, I had a little girl allergic to strawberries, break out like crazy. And then all of a sudden, I'm adjusting this little girl, and the mom comes in, so do you think this could actually change her allergies to fruits? Because she got a hold of some strawberries, ate them, and this is the first time in her life she's never broke out. And the only thing that's changed is we started getting her adjusted. Because the immune system was out of balance and overreacting, with an adjustment brought her body back into balance. So another moringa, so big recommendation. And what I've done online and what I'm doing online hasn't been there yet. I worked today all day long on it, putting together literally here's the go-tos. What are the top things that I would say to a patient wanting to, number one, prevent cancer, and number two, if somebody is diagnosed with cancer, what are the strategies for which? The links to that study that I went through with all the fruits and vegetables, those things, those studies are there so that they can get online, they can read those studies themselves, they can analyze the information to decide if it's right for them to initiate those strategies or add those to their cancer regimen. So moringa plant is one of the most nutrient-dense plants out there. If you look at, in fact, moringa is said to have 7 times more vitamin C than oranges, 10 times more vitamin A than carrots, 17 times more calcium than milk, 19 times more protein than yogurt, 15 times more potassium than bananas, 25 times more iron than spinach. The moringa plant is easily cultivated, makes it a sustainable remedy for malnutrition. Countries like Senegal. Is that how you pronounce it?
Senegal.
Senegal. See, I'm horrible with names and countries, but I can read research. So Benin treat children with moringa, malnutrition, moringa plant. Some say it may have been the manna originally. Then I'm like, did it grow every day? But they say it grows exponentially during its growth period.
In the US, or is that a foreign?
It's more of a tropical to sandy desert. It can grow literally in areas that nothing else can grow, where there would be no other food moringa could grow. So it's phenomenal what it can actually do and where it can grow. And it grows so prolifically. I got a patient actually gave me some plants, and I'm going to house it through the winter, and then. No, it doesn't, not at all. You got to keep it warm. But it does phenomenally. You just keep tearing the leaves off every day, and you just keep eating on it, and you dry it, and you can't keep up with it for just one single family if they could grow a single plant. So literally using it for malnutrition, for breast milk and stuff like that, for better lactation in mothers, really cool stuff. A new study just coming out, and they've actually done it again and confirmed it. Patient brought in the stuff about sugar, and they're confirming it, about how sugar works, which when you look at PET scans, they're literally giving you radioactive sugar, and that way they can see where it accumulates in the cancer cells of your body, because its uptake of cancer cells is enhanced for sugar because of the increased insulin receptors. Looking at the cells, there's increased insulin receptors on the surface of cancer cells, so we know that it's going to feed on sugar. So elimination of sugar has been utilized for the kind of starving of cancer. But you didn't get cancer because you ate too much fruit, though, so don't be too afraid of fruit. Okay, because I believe that even though we get sugar from it, God gave us the other enzymes and nutrients in there that can kill. It's kind of like the sun doesn't cause cancer. Way too much burning can, and too many wounds, damage over and over. But UVA and UVB. One can heat us up and burn us a little bit, but the other one actually helps us produce vitamin D, which is probably the number one supplement somebody should be taking. Their numbers should be up between 60 and 80, somewhere around 80. And I did another video online where they had talked about how, taking too much vitamin D could be harmful. And they're like trying to scare people about like 1,000 to 4,000 IUs a day. And they said, it increased fractures and did this. I'm like, that was because they injected 300,000 IUs. The study that they didn't explain, they injected 300,000, and within the first couple months, the first month especially, there's a significant increased risk of falling and fractures and things like that.
I think I actually read a study about the vitamin D, how like doing too much was bad for you.
But when you read the actual study, this doctor gets on TV, and I did a video of it because I'm like, you just gave a tidbit of the information, and you completely, and what they said in the Institute of Medicine's review on vitamin D and calcium caused the strokes. Calcium caused the heart attacks. Calcium caused the calcification of our arteries. It wasn't vitamin D. And then they said it was the way they gave the vitamin D to the person and the amount was physiologically impossible in nature. And because of that amount, that was the harm. It wasn't the vitamin D, it was the doctor. And just that type of stuff frustrates me because they lied to people and they scared people from taking the adequate amounts that could get their vitamin D levels up. And what's cool is, like, if you get out in the sun, they study people that work in the sun constantly, lifeguards and different people like that, and construction workers getting tons of sun, and their body's vitamin D would go way up, and it would plateau right around 45. Some would get a little bit higher, but it would never go up exponentially into the hundreds. It wasn't like continuing to go up no matter how much sun exposure. They tan and they resist the amount of vitamin B or the sun's UVB rays that got into their cells to be able to produce vitamin D. So it's literally like there's a safeguard against way too much in natural sun exposure. So when you take those numbers, their mortality went way down around 45 and 60, and then after 85, it slightly went up. And that's where they said taking too much could kill you. But way up here if you had way too little. They should have said, if you don't have enough, you're significantly elevating your mortality risk. Instead, they didn't say anything about that hardly at all. They just said taking too much could increase your risk. Increase your risk after you got high amounts, the adequate amounts. Does that make sense? And that little rise, I would rather somebody over-supplement than under-supplement. But their promotion would have allowed people to under-supplement. So atrazine-induced aromatase, so here's where I kind of hammer on our changes we need in our society. Atrazine is a chemical and causes wildlife and reproductive cancers in humans. So atrazine is an all-star. Syngenta, everybody pay attention. Syngenta, let's connect the dots. Syngenta makes this. Atrazine is an all-star, which if I go backwards, causes reproductive cancers because an aromatase enhancer enhances the production of estrogen in females and males, made by Syngenta, and Novartis and AstraZeneca merge agribusinesses to form Syngenta. Who started Breast Cancer Awareness Month? AstraZeneca. Who makes tamoxifen, an aromatase inhibitor, a blockbuster billion-dollar drug for breast cancer. Companies selling chemicals that say they're got to have them on our food and spraying because farmers need them. I'm not harping on farmers. I wish more would shift towards organic because of information like this, but that is corrupt. You make a chemical that you spray on our food that's illegal in other countries. They know it. There's no doubt about it at this moment in time. The fact that they lied about the safety of glyphosate or glyphosate, I don't care how you say it. All right. The fact that they lied about the studies and been proven guilty of that. There are farmers that are developing cancer. There's local farmers dying that I know of. They lied about the connection, and they hid it. And then they paid out government officials, which one of them actually said, if I can bury that, if I can destroy that, I should get a prize. Talking about how if I can destroy the studies coming out that were showing that their chemical was causing cancer, he was going to destroy it, and he deserved a prize for killing more people. He should go to jail for murder.
Right.
Are they linked with Monsanto?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Glyphosate is Monsanto, which I think Bayer merged with them. Current testing, mammograms, CTs, PETs, all causing cancer. MRIs, safer. Ultrasound, got to push for your doctors to do something like an MRI. Ultrasound would be probably the safest and can sometimes be used to be able to detect whether a tumor is growing or shrinking. But things like CT scans, they did CT scans 15 minutes later on the same exact patient. You could say, theorize, maybe it was but some shrunk and some grew larger by about 30% changes in measurable size of the tumor 15 minutes later with another CT scan. But doctors will oftentimes use CT scans to scare people, and your tumor's growing, it's grown by 20%. Well, 30% was how much there was variation in their measurements within 15 minutes, which they said was not possible that it grew that fast. So they use these tests that are not accurate, scare people into invasive procedures, don't give them all the facts. Ultrasound would be better, and then blood testing like CEA markers, so cancer markers. So those are typical right now.
Through CT and PET scan that there's very little radiation, not enough to affect the patient negatively.
No, there's enough. I forget the estimates, maybe 30,000 cancers and whenever I say, okay, so I'll go through another statistic here in a moment of how many people develop cancer because of mammography. Mm-hmm. And they say about 1 in 1,000 will develop cancer because of mammography. So I always say when they admit to causing harm, typically they're going to lowball it. The number we may cause like 1 to possibly 100 cancers. We don't know exactly because we never really want to do the studies. Yeah. So we'll just say probably 1. It could be 100. So when they say tens of thousands, there's a lot more than that. We know that the radiation does cause cancer. So breast cancer mortality in neighboring European countries with different levels of screening, but similar access to treatment, trend analysis of the World Health Organization mortality. So if you watch this, the smaller line here, this is Sweden in blue, and then Norway in red. So they took the World Health Organization's disease and mortality statistics from all countries, and they specifically looked at, in this graph, Sweden and Norway, and here's the mortality of breast cancer. It slightly went down, but not a huge change. Here is the percentage of the population invited to go through mammography. And most women in the United States, when they're told to go to a mammogram, what do they typically do, unless they listen to me? They go. Anthony's laughing back there. They go, or they listen to me, they quit. Look at this. So if mammograms went, percentage of the population going to mammograms, what should have happened to this blue line? Should have gone down exponentially, suddenly. There should have been a proportional decline in the number of women dying of breast cancer if mammography actually stopped breast cancer from progressing to aggressive cancer that takes a person's life. And that's why here is an article, see if I can find it right here, from the Journal of American Medical Association. This was published 2013. 2013. Overdiagnosis, overtreatment, the statement here, over the past 30 years, awareness and screening have led to an emphasis on early diagnosis of cancer, although the goals of these efforts were to reduce the rate of late-stage disease, and what you can say late stage would be deadly cancers, were to reduce the rate of late-stage disease and decrease cancer mortality. Secular trends and clinical trials suggest that these goals have not been met. So if after 30 years of doing the same darn thing, and our goals have not been met in other countries, no. And you're my patients. And I'm telling you that. Don't keep coming. So, and that's why I like Switzerland. It's not in the PowerPoint, but Switzerland abolishing mammography screening. When was this published? Downloaded 2014. Their board meeting was 2013, and it was published in 2014. So within a month or two after they published this, I read it, New England Journal of Medicine. And they say it. They say right here, we would be in favor of mammography screening. I would too. So I would say this. I could state the exact same thing that these researchers did, which led to the analysis of the data and information on mammography screening to say, we're going to abolish it. We're going to do away with it in our country. I would be in favor of mammography screening. The only thing I switched was I versus we. I would be in favor of mammography screening if these beliefs were valid, the belief that it saved lives. Unfortunately, they are not, and we believe that women need to be told so from an ethical perspective. A public health program that does not clearly produce more benefits than harms, it's hard to justify. It's a good statement, right? An argument, though, let's backtrack into this article. An argument by proponents of mammography screening said this. This was their argument. Was that the report unsettled women, but we wonder how to avoid unsettling women given the available evidence. How many women in America, like your friend, would be unsettled if she came to find out that mammograms didn't do anything for her? Now, we could say possibly it did if she changed her lifestyle and she got to a doctor that said you need to eat more garlic, more onions. Do you follow me? If it initiated her to make lifestyle changes that would extend her life. Detecting more cancer should see an exponential decline, both because of if early detection was truly an ability to treat it better, we should have more women surviving, less women dying than we had before. And also if our treatments were better or were actually effective, and we detected more cancers, if we had effective treatments, then we should also see a decline, but we didn't see. So you can literally say, by this, more women being treated with the conventional treatments, more women being detected with cancer, we should see lives extended if treatments were effective and lives were actually extended. And early detection was a thing. Why am I going in reverse?
Ultrasound would be a safer method?
I'll go through. Ultrasound if you had a tumor. Ultrasound would be probably difficult to be able to go through the entire breast tissue to see. So there's some other biomarkers and things like that. I wanted to throw this out there because I just want to kind of mix in some things. Dietary flax alters tumor biological markers in postmenopausal breast cancer. They literally said it was as effective as tamoxifen. Flaxseed was able to, and they gave them flax muffins. Clinical trial, double-blind placebo-controlled trial, giving women flax muffins versus muffins without flax in it. So technically, you kind of were feeding sugar to the other placebo group. Flax muffins, that's all they did. Significantly elevated and improved expression, downregulating HER2 gene expression, which is actually necessary for replication of the heart cells rapidly. But if it expresses itself in the breast tissue, then it can lead to rapid cellular replication in the breast tissue, which that's not where you need that gene to be expressed. So genes can be expressed in one area of your body, but not in another area of your body. But I thought it was just in your DNA. If it was just in your DNA, it would be in every single cell in your entire body because they all have the same DNA. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This is the things that they don't, I mean, one of the things I go back to is why genetic tests don't help doctors predict your risk of disease. It's like a genetic test can be up to a couple $1,000s nowadays for cancer markers, cancer genes. But taking all the data, these disease models generated a variety of statistical combinations of genetic and environmental factors, but none produced any marked improvement in predicting disease risk over lifestyle factors alone. Lifestyle factors alone were better at predicting somebody's risk of cancer in the future than doing genetic tests. So literally, your nutritionist, if they know good nutrition, not just the pyramid, all right, they should be paid thousands of dollars rather than if the value of a genetic test is thousands, then what's the value of something better? Do you follow me? We pay money for junk, things that don't work. Flaxseed does. Sorry I had that slide up when I pointed back at it. Abolishing mammography screening, again, that's the Switzerland. And again, it is easier to promote mammography screening if the majority of women believe that it prevents or reduces the risk of getting breast cancer and saves lives. It's easy to promote it. Saves lives through early detection or aggressive tumors. We would be in favor of mammography screening, so it's easy. That was the one other thing I wanted to include before that other sentence that I read off the piece of paper. It's easy to promote mammography screening. It's easy. Medicine chooses the easy way to make money. And the reality is, am I completely against medical physicians? No, I'm literally bringing this information out, hoping and praying that they say, you know what, it's time to change. It's time to make the changes that other people are finding out we should have made a long time ago. They can have a job, just do the right thing. Breast cancer screening incidence and mortality across U.S. counties. So again, a 2015 study, what did they find when analyzed at the county level? The clearest result of mammography screening is the diagnosis of additional small cancers. Furthermore, there is no decline in the detection of larger cancers, which might explain the absence of any significant difference in overall rate of death from the disease. Together, these findings suggest widespread overdiagnosis. One of the statements in there, they actually said women with better access to quality health care, getting more mammograms, had some of the highest cancer rates and death rates from cancer. Highest quality. So they literally talk in idiocracies, right? Is that actually a term? I might be making myself look like an idiot. I don't know. But I'm like, that is an idiot who says, they had access to quality care, but we saw more die, and that's not quality care. That's corrupt care. And you can quote me. So, overdiagnosis, overtreatment of cancer, and opportunity for improvement. And again, that was the one I read just a second ago from the Journal of American Medical Association. So here's a very good explanation of what's happening and why your friend or other people, and again, if she finds this information, watches this video, she may be upset at first, but that, and again, like New England Journal of Medicine, some proponents of continuing on with mammograms said, I don't know how we do this without upsetting people. I'd rather upset somebody I'd rather upset somebody and kick their rear end and say, there's the path you need to be on, not the continued one where you're just believing that they got it all, and they got it all with their drug. So here's what happens without screening when we wait till symptoms arrive. So you take 100 theoretical women here, and this is the way you explain it. 100 women here, 100 women here. These women don't undergo screening. They wait till symptoms arise. And let's say that 100 women develop symptoms around 67 years of age, and because we have ineffective treatments, they die at 70. 5-year survival, which Susan G. Komen uses that, and many proponents, and this is the reality. This right here, if you read this article, so people oftentimes will ask me for my sources. They're always on my website underneath these videos when we get the time to put them up there. So crunching the numbers, what cancer screening statistics really tell us, read that. They said 76% of doctors, when given the actual data and information and research and given it, said, here, read this, and can you tell us if 5-year survival means more women are living longer in mammography was saving lives? Guess what? 76% of doctors got it wrong. They said it extends lives. They said it saved lives. So many people will sit there and say to me, you're just a chiropractor. I've got it right. 76% of doctors in a study couldn't get it right. There's 25%. I don't even have an MD behind my name, but I was able to get it right. So here's the way it works. Because of symptoms, they die 3 years later, 0% survival to 5 years. Here, you would detect it earlier. You detect more early. we'll talk about more and less and what happens there, and why we have so many women going around saying, you got to go get your mammograms. You'd be stupid not to get your mammograms because it saved my life. I guarantee your friend, and that's what scares me, is your friend is now, unless she learns this, learns the truth, starts doing other things, she's part, this is hard to say, but it's true. She's inadvertently part of the problem that can persist in our nation and in the world, because she is now a proponent of mammography because of the false belief it saved her life. Cancer diagnosis. So they're literally using people they've harmed, they've taken money from inappropriately, not given the adequate strategies that could have improved their health and life, and using them to make more money by convincing others to do the same. So we detect it early and we detect more early. So what happens to 5-year survival if they find out at 60, the same 100 women find out at 60 because of early detection? Because of inadequate and improper treatments, they die at 70 still. They still die, despite our treatments in America. This is why the same death. And the reality is this. People say, well, people are living longer with cancers. No, they're not, only because of early detection, which gives this, it's called a lead time bias. We're saying people live longer, but they don't actually live long. They still die at the same age.
They just found out earlier.
They just found out and live with more stress and more burden on their pocketbook and more burden on their life and less quality of life because they found out early. That's the result. What's that? More pollutants into their body, more causes of cancer in their body, more disease, more heart attacks, more strokes, more, yeah. And what happens here is overdiagnosis. That's lead time bias, so you can't use 5-year survival. You have to actually use overall survival, which, when you look at overall survival in longevity in America, is it going up or going down now? Going down. Our children are not supposed to live as long as the parents. That means we're getting worse. The things we're doing are not working. So that's why I harp on this. Because if that idol is never torn down, they're going to continue to worship mammograms and never going to turn and say, I need to find something else. 1,000 people with progressive cancers, because progressive cancers will go to the point where they are detected by symptoms and problems, and then the women will go in for treatment. And because of treatment, maybe 400 alive and 600 are dead at 5 years. 400 and 600 that actually needed quote-unquote treatment, okay? Over here, because of screening, overdiagnosis, that's why so many more women were being found to have cancer, diagnosed with cancer. That cancer was never going to progress to the point where it caused them any problems at all, any symptoms. This way they lived their life not knowing they had any type of tumor or cancer. So 2,000 women additional would be told they have cancer. Still the same 1,000 with the progressive cancers. 5 years later, 2,400 versus 4,000, that's an 80% survival versus 40% survival, because 2,000 would still be alive because they didn't need cancer treatments in the first place. Which actually, this is wrong, because you should actually say how many die of the cancer. Chemotherapy induces death in many patients. Up to like 30% or something like that. One of the studies, I didn't get through all my studies and remind myself of all the specific statistics, but they said 30-day death was initiated by chemotherapy. So a significant portion of cancer patients are dying because of chemotherapy, which I have to, here it is. Are cancer patients' hopes too high in chemo? What'd they say? It's New England Journal of Medicine. They said that 81% of colorectal cancer patients and 69% of terminal lung cancer patients did not understand their chemotherapy was not at all likely to eliminate their tumors. In a hospital, being treated with chemotherapy, you have, and I hate to even use people examples, but think about that. You're sitting, you're being treated, your family member's being treated, and then they come in, hey, we're doing a study real quick. So, do you believe your chemotherapy is going to cure your cancer? Oh yeah, my doctor said it was. Oh yeah, I believe that. 81% were wrong. So only 19% were told the truth or understood the truth. And some of the doctors were saying that it's hard to explain to people the cold, hard facts that they're going to die. Sometimes patients don't understand the finality of their disease, which when I go to that and I hear that kind of stuff, I have a Discover magazine article over here somewhere where they say the body can beat terminal cancer. So that right there, when they talk about people who quit their jobs, went on vacations, did stress relief, did yoga, ate fruits and vegetables, did all these things, and the body beat what doctors said would kill them.
Wow.
So if the body can beat an incurable cancer, what's the best treatment? It's in our body. It's what we put in our body. It's what we eliminate from our body. Does that make sense? How powerful is that to be told to every single cancer patient? But yet doctors are sitting there saying, hey, pay me to take your hope from you. That's what doctors are doing. There are some, they're not all of them, but some are doing exactly that. They're saying, I'm sorry, you have an incurable cancer. There's no effective treatments. The body has it. Yes, it does. We just don't call it a treatment because doctors can't sell it and get insurance to pay for it. Okay, your body is the best treatment, so you've got to pay yourself $475,000. You're awarded because you'll beat cancer if you just do these changes. So that lead time, so what happens is what I was talking about is we now have 2,000 additional women walking around saying, hey, you got to go get your mammograms because I found out I had cancer early and I'm alive. They would have been alive anyways. National Cancer Institute Breast Cancer Screening and Health of Professional version, so you need to read this. Magnitude of the effect, theoretically, in annual mammograms in women of 40 to 80 years of age may cause up to one breast cancer per 1,000 women. Use that stat. And now read Washington Post. Did I put it in there? Yeah, I did. Stop routine breast cancer screening. Science says they don't save lives. So, where are my numbers here? So, of 500 abnormal screens, so of 9,500 people, mammograms will be normal in 9,500 out of 10,000, they said. So this is out of 10,000. These numbers are out of 10,000. 9,500 women will have normal tests, negative, no cancer, no tumor. Of the 500 abnormal screens, 466 to 479 will have false positives, thus going back for further testing and scare the bejesus out of them. And 100 to 200 of these women will undergo invasive procedures. The remaining 21 to 34 abnormal screens will be true positives. 21 to 34 will be true positives for cancer. Some of these cancers, mind you, don't need to be treated. Will be true positives indicating breast cancer. Some of these women will die of breast cancer in spite of mammograph detection and optimal therapy. And again, one of those idiocracies they always claim. And some may live long enough to die of other causes, even if the cancer had not been screen detected. The number of lives, or extended lives, attributed to mammography detection is between 2 and 6. Out of how many? How many did it say initially? 10,000. So 2 to 6 women will have their life extended because of mammography out of 10,000. Do the math on that slide prior. 1 breast cancer per 1,000 women screened. Multiply that by 10. According to the NCI, if it's on the low end, 2 having their life extended, that means we're in the whole 8. We caused 8 more cancers than we saved and extended. Or if it's on the high end, 6. Means we're in the whole 4 women. Do mammograms save lives? And I hate to be the one to have to hammer that home, but we have to. I want to see changes because there are safer alternatives. Effectiveness in non-invasive digital infrared thermal imaging system in the detection of breast cancer. So thermography is probably one of the best detection methods of changes that can show changes in the tissue, inflammation, blood, vascular changes. When you Google the images of these, you can see a hot breast, a cold breast. one that's got massive blood flow changes. You can see it's lighting up in a region. And you say, hey, even before a tumor, and they can detect changes at the vascular level, the inflammatory level, saying you've got a hot breast on one side versus the other. They're not even, meaning there's a disease process or something's going on. Could be mastitis, which would what would happen is we would have more women possibly scared if we just said, okay, we're trying to detect cancer. But proper explanation of thermography should be it's detecting vascular changes or inflammation or possible infection. There's a lot of different things that can be picked up on this. More things that could be picked, but it's disease or changes, processes that could increase your likelihood of developing cancer in your future. But why not detect it then and say, hey, even if it's infection, let's do these changes, which come down to living a healthier lifestyle, doing the right things for your body, right? You have vascular changes, which could eventually mean that we're having angiogenesis or blood vessel formation to a cancerous cells that are too small to be detected on other tests, ultrasound or mammography or MRI yet, and then they're going to grow out of control if we leave your body in the state it's in or not change the things that allow it to grow and then change it and then go back and redo the test and say, hey, look, it's normalized now. You've healed yourself. Your body beat whatever disease process, infection, inflammation, or cancer. Does that make sense? So, I have not yet, but many people will ask me to, because it's not local, there's nothing, sometimes they do it in Nashville, but maybe I'll invest and utilize that test. But it's like we need enough of the population to start doing that to invest a $16,000 piece of equipment. But again, it's not detection of cancer, it's detection of changes that could be present or often present, you know what I mean? Present, yeah, and you can do but self-checks oftentimes will tell you once it's tumorous then, you know? So again, and I always say, I don't care about any test until I know the patient knows what to do. Because if you scare somebody and they don't know what to do, which direction do they typically go? Because the herd in the culture and society pulls and gravitates a person towards what type of treatments? Orthodox, typical treatments. So to doctors that sit down with you and say, here's your child's cancer and this is all the nutrition he needs to eat, right? That's the way they did it? Mm-hmm. No. You know, I mean, as a parent, that has to upset you.
Oh, absolutely.
Mortality results from a randomized prostate cancer screening trial, so PSA. And look again, so the two biggest promotions of detection of early stages of cancer, early detection of cancer, mammograms and PSA checks. Men and women, got to get them both under care. Which line? The screening here in black or the control group in red? Which one's higher?
Screening.
More prostate cancer deaths in the screening group. Now, PSA is just a blood test. So the blood test isn't harmful, but what is? If the test isn't harmful, what would cause more to die? The treatment. It could be stress level. You could say yes, the stress level. It's the treatments.
What treatments are they getting once they get the screening?
Oftentimes castration. I'll go through stuff like that. Chemical castration, lowering testosterone. What's crazy, I don't have it in here yet, but I'll talk about it next month, prostate cancer. But they actually show prostate, PSA, the hormone is anti-angiogenic and anti-metastatic, meaning it suppresses cancer spread and growth. So literally the organ that may develop cancer sooner than any other organ in the male oftentimes will produce more PSA, but that PSA hormone suppresses it, and they talked about possibly using a synthetic PSA type hormone chemical to suppress cancer growth and treat it. But let's chemically lessen or lower your body's ability to produce PSA. Thus, your blood test looks really good. Cancer's growing more, and you die sooner.
Everything seems backwards.
And that's why Otis Webb Brawley, he's Chief Scientific and Medical Officer for the ACS, American Cancer Society, wrote a book, How We Do Harm, for men to read before ever going to get a PSA check. He actually refers to people that promoted PSA checks in his hospital that he ran in Georgia. He actually stated that he got the opportunity to sit down with Lucifer, the devil, as somebody tried to sell him on why they needed to do free blood tests, because the free test would bring so many men in. And he answered a fundamental question: how many lives will you save The man could literally give a statistic on the number of men that would be impotent, the number of men that would need Depends diapers because they couldn't hold their bladder or their bowels anymore. He gave the statistics on the harms of the treatments, but couldn't even get the number of men that would have their life extended or saved. And he said, it literally, I read this statement so many, he said the man took his glasses off, looked at me as if I were a fool, and said, don't you know, no one knows if this stuff saves lives. He admitted it after trying to sell him on it. And he wrote a book, How We Do Harm. So Richard Ablin, University of Arizona discoverer, quote unquote, of the PSA check, he said this, I never dreamed that my discovery 4 decades ago would lead to such a profit-driven public health disaster. The PC vaccine, so the prostate cancer vaccine, if you look at this, so going back to the FDA for 4 months additional life for a cancer vaccine that cost $93,000. Well, insight, new doubts about the prostate cancer vaccine, Provenge. This is 2012, that was 2010. As soon as I read that, I'm like, I knew it. A really, really expensive drug to me means there's a lot of fraud and they're going to have to pay a lot of fines in the future. That's why it scares me to death about this leukemia drug that just came and was approved. $475,000, they're lying. I can say that because I pray it's not true. I pray that it's a harmless treatment. I pray that it does help children. I really do. But when I see a liar never repent for their lies and stop and do it over and over again, so they literally were extracting the white blood cells from these men in the placebo group, their immune cells. And researchers said this is why. They extracted white blood cells in the placebo group but never gave them back to the men. The treatment group over here, they extracted their white blood cells, their immune cells, mixed it with biopsy tissue samples of their cancer, mixed their white blood cells and said, hey, look, see, there's the cancer, now you can recognize it. And then they gave them back to the men in the treatment group. So they gave back their immune cells, their soldiers that need to fight off cancer. Meanwhile, weakening the placebo group. And it was because of the weakening of the placebo group by extracting their white blood cells and never giving their immune cells back to them that those men had progressive cancer faster than the treatment group. And it was actually found that the Provenge, which is still on the market, actually kills men faster than doing nothing. She says, she is motivated. I love this person, her heart, her spirit. She says she is motivated to help vulnerable, quote, vulnerable and desperate patients so much that she gave up her job, salary, and health insurance, arguing that Provenge is harmful to these men. She called the whole thing utterly horrific. The company got away with hiding data and doctors making $7,000 per prescription won't even engage in discussion with her about whether it helps their patients or not.
So you're saying that the doctors are paid for just writing the
Yes.
prescription? Yes.
$7
They always say
grand.
they're not. Is that
$7 grand. I just made $7 grand with the swipe of my pen.
That is crazy.
Corruption. Evil.
Oh my goodness.
High PSA levels may show the body is fighting cancer. That's the one I was talking about. High PSA. Good. Accelerate. Now, it's not good. It can be an indicator, but you don't want your body to have to be raising cholesterol to fight heart disease. Cholesterol fights heart disease. I know you're all really freaked out now. Yes, it does. It's the firemen. They're going to be an indicator. It's not good and not bad.
Okay.
They're all good. They have a purpose. We have to ask the question, why are they elevated? Why is Now, did they make love to their wife the night before, and that's why, and you accidentally came in for a blood test the night after you did that, and it was elevated because of that? Because it does. And how many men get false positives and scared? Do you follow me? Because, oops, me and my wife, laid in the marital bed last night, and, No, they don't. Or they get a rectal exam, which stimulates the prostate a little bit, makes it produce more PSA, and then they take their blood after that. How many men get positive tests from that, too?
So that's what's creating false positives?
A lot of false positives come from stuff like that.
But they don't ever
Which then, if high PSA is anti-tumorogenic and can suppress tumor growth, it's like, make love to fight cancer. So there you go, guys. Tell your wife you want to fight cancer tonight.
They stop making money if they tell you.
Exactly. They tell you the truth because, I mean, how many doctors are like, I know this, that if I do the rectal exam first and then I draw the blood, the PSA will be elevated. Therefore, I'll have a reason to call them back, bill their insurance again. And that's the thing is like, so if you're watching on YouTube, it's like individuals live in the audience, sickening. It should be. And why do I preach on this stuff all the time? Many times people say, I mean, even my friends and family have told me to shut up about it. It doesn't make money. No, I understand telling the truth doesn't make money, but like that woman there who was willing to fight against it and putting the word out about how they fraudulently brought that drug to market and she's fighting it, losing her job. She's a high-level medical expert, scientist, saying, this is wrong. And she's doing it for people she doesn't even know. Anti-angiogenic activity of prostate-specific antigen. Watch this. PSA is not prostate-specific, having been detected in breast, lung, uterine cancers. In one study, patients whose breast tumors, females, breast tumors had higher levels of PSA, had a better prognosis, meaning better chance of survival. Women, you better hope that if you have breast cancer, you have high PSA levels as well. Look at that stuff. Better testing. So to go through some of these, and I'll put this on the website here soon too, another phenomenal program to go through if somebody does have cancer right now, since I don't have stuff, similar stuff put up yet, but is How Chris Beat Cancer Square One, The Truth About Cancer, great docuseries to watch, those things. So Chris beat cancer, beat colorectal cancer, went through some conventional initially, and then learned all this stuff of how he needed to treat it naturally and reversed his own cancer. So he's really laid out a lot of these things, and he does a really good job, a phenomenal job laying this stuff out. The RGCC economics test, Greek test, chemosensitivity test, not paid by insurance often, but they used to do chemosensitivity tests, and they kind of did away with it. But what's crazy is you can get this test online, and you have to pay cash for it. It can be like $1,400 or a little bit more than that. Because of exchange, you have to get it from overseas. But they can literally test chemotherapy drugs. They literally take your cancer cells from blood tests, because you have cancer cells in your blood before the tumor is large enough to be detectable in tests. But I had an article over here that actually a surgeon, one of the top surgeons, MD Anderson Cancer Center, says, we tell patients we got it all, because what else can we do until it comes back? He says, because cancer cells are free floating in their bloodstream before we ever detect it on any of our tests. But that's not what patients are told. We got it early before it spread. Lies. See, they can take your blood, filter out, take the cancer cells, look at it, drip chemotherapy. Did it kill the cancer? Oh, that chemotherapy didn't. Luckily, your doctor didn't accidentally give you that one. Wouldn't you love to, if you even chose to do the standard treatments, love to know my cancer will respond to that chemotherapy? Right. Instead of just harming everything in my body and not killing my cancer cells. Right. They should be doing this darn test. And then they'll test 45, a couple hundred chemotherapy agents, and then they go to 45 natural extracts, plant-based extracts. And then it'd be cool, because then you can really hone in. And what nutrition may not be like killing the cancer cell directly, but it boosts your immune system that comes in and kills the cancer. So you may be taking turkey tail mushroom, but if you drop turkey tail mushroom tincture on your cancer, it may not kill the cancer. But if you took turkey tail mushroom and it boosted your immune system, which FDA studies have now proven and been reported in 2010, that boosts the immune system, responding it from breast cancer patients going through chemotherapy, it brought their immune system back. If we leave them weakened state, what comes back? Cancer. FDA approves a vaccine to fight prostate cancer. I already talked about that. The other things I wanted to touch on, and that's like, I touched on, people will probably be saying like, oh, it's not breast though. Avastin fails to slow breast cancer, FDA finds. The US FDA approved Roche's blockbuster Avastin in 2008 based on early stage trials showing it shrank tumors caused by breast cancer. Avastin's so-called accelerated approval was based on the condition that later studies would show a survival benefit. Did y'all know our FDA approves drugs that have never been proven to allow people to live longer? So you knew that. But a lot of people don't. If it's FDA approved, it's got to be safe. Every drug that's ever been taken off the market. The deadliest drug, addictive drug, narcotics, ever in history, killed more, hundreds of thousands of people, is FDA approved. The deadliest, you bring in all your illegal drugs in this, and you bring all your prescription drugs, which ones are deadlier? Prescriptions. And they're FDA approved. Additionally, the FDA said more recent data did not confirm the tumor shrinkage. Oh wait, the drug company lied. Sorry, it didn't actually shrink the tumors. Patients taking Avastin showed significantly more side effects, including high blood pressure, fatigue, abnormal white blood cell counts, hemorrhaging. They did not hold true to their promise, the drug companies. Oh, and it's not just adults with breast cancer or prostate cancer that they're willing to lie about. We'll leave the children alone. We won't use children to profit, right? They've got a little bit of good in them, right? You'd think they would, right? Pfizer pulls leukemia drug from U.S. market. The drug maker, Pfizer, Inc., is pulling decade-old leukemia medicine off the U.S. market after a study found a higher death rate and no benefit. But don't worry, Mylotarg's first quarter sales in 1 year was $8.8 million. First quarter. So the trial, after the fact, showed more deaths in the first couple of months. After the fact that our taxpayer dollars paid for. The fatality rate was 5.7% for Mylotarg, 1.4% without the drug. So almost a five-fold, maybe four-fold increase in mortality. In first couple of months means the drug companies knew it and they withheld the evidence, knowing they were going to kill children for profits. Don't buy your aspirin, don't buy your, that's what that stuff should initiate the public and people out there watching this and you guys to say, I'm doing everything I can to get off of every single drug I've ever been taken, and I'm taking right now, my doctor says I should be taken, and I'm going to do the natural herbal things, I'm going to get adjusted by chiropractors, I'm going to start exercising, I'm going to do all these things so that I don't have to give any more money of mine from my pocket. Well, actually, it comes out of my pocket, goes to the government, and the government then funds research studies for the pharmaceutical companies to then patent drugs that were paid for and found out about by our money. And then they patent them, and then they sell them back to you. You know that? We have funded drugs that then the pharmaceutical companies is able to patent and sell back to us. But it was our taxpayer dollars that paid for the discovery and testing and research to develop it. We paid for the development, but we don't get it. We have to buy it. Common cancer treatments may create dangerous cancer stem cells. Title of Fox News of 2012, radiation therapy and chemo aimed at killing cancer cells may have the undesirable effect of helping to create cancer stem cells, which are thought to be particularly adept at generating new tumors and are especially resistant to treatment. Radiotherapy has been a standard, so it says radiation commonly used to treat cancer can trigger their stemness or the stem cell growth of cancer cells. Radiotherapy has been a standard treatment for cancer. This is a quote from a doctor of Harvard Medical School in Boston. He says, radiotherapy has been a standard treatment for cancer for so long. So we were quite surprised that it could cause stemness or stem cell growth of cancer cells. You were quite surprised at radiation. It's 2012. Wake up. Stop lying. I was really surprised at that. We've known radiation causes cancer for years. And see, like to me, to hear statements like that come out of the mouth of a Harvard doctor, like what do you think of a person like that? You guys know that we know that the medical community knows radiation causes cancer. So when you radiate somebody to say we're shrinking the tumor because you're killing cells and you're causing other harms and DNA damage to the healthy cells around it. And then out of their mouth says, this is really surprising. You chuckle a little bit, but you shake your head and you say, you're a, you know what, not very, a few screws loose. A sympathetic nervous system induces metastatic switch to breast cancer. And this is what's scary to me, is thinking about this right here. So this is why we do autonomic nervous system checks in the office. We want to see the autonomic balance, and we do this on cancer patients. We want to see, is their nervous system functioning well, or is it functioning poorly? And you'll see other studies, but this is what's, take and think about this. The sympathetic, the fight or flight, stress response of the nervous system induces metastatic switch in primary breast cancer. So primary would be like benign, non-harmful, isolated tumor, not spread. Metastatic, spread. Metastasis to distant tissues is the chief driver of breast cancer-related mortality. Stress-induced neuroendocrine activation induced a 30-fold increase in metastasis to distant tissues, including the lymph nodes and the lungs. These findings identify activation of the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, as a novel regulator of breast cancer, metastasis, or deadly cancer. So let's theoretically think that I'm an oncologist and I do breast cancer screening and I promote mammography. Ring, ring, ring. Usually they have the nurse, right? Excuse me, we found something abnormal on your test. Can you give us a call back as soon as possible? What happens to your stress response right now? Boom, they just caused a 30-fold increase in your risk of going metastatic. You could have lived and never known it, but that activation by a phone call. Now that's theory that's never been tested in studies, that phone calls actually cause an increase in metastasis. But by this research, it's pretty easy to see. If we cause more stress on that person, we could take a cancer that would never harm them and took them into a deadly cancer. Sympathetic nervous system in cancer, this is 1974. Chemical sympathectomy, removing nerve supply to regions of the animal's body, allowed previously tumor-resistant tissues to become receptive to grafts of tumors. Why am I a chiropractor? Because my aunt's life was saved because she had metastatic cancer, gone to her lungs, told she would die, but her body could beat her terminal cancer. So she sought out what allowed for greater enhancement of her body's natural expression of healing and health. And that's what chiropractic is. I want to make sure the brain and the nervous system is in balance and the communication is there. Chemical deadening of the nerves allowed cancer to grow in that region of the animal's body. How powerful is that? And that was 1974. And they even state in there that different forms of interruption to the normal nerve flow could initiate or place that region. Why, if it was hormones, is it right side but not left? Is there more estrogen over here in the right and not enough estrogen over there in the left to produce breast cancer? It's susceptibility. More pressure here. Non-resistant tissue because of better nerve flow over here, less nerve flow over here. Common bodily malfunctions and signaling of cancer. Some of them I found on the online, which there's a lot more. I didn't get to this, so I'm kind of dying out because I didn't get all the stuff that I wanted to. But more antibiotics, more cancer risk. Because an antibiotic isn't better health. They could be used in a very, very minimal number of patients to save a life. But the way we're using them, we are causing more harm. Because one, if a child's always sick, and this is what I always tell people, my sister was pulled out by forceps, she was subluxated, her spine was misaligned from birth. All right, she was the chronically ill patient. She was always in there in the hospital and doctor's offices for antibiotics and ear infections, tonsils removed, adenoids removed, which is a connection to increased risk of cancer there too. Because those organs aren't just malfunctioning because you have a bad organ, it's because your nervous system can't control the organ. You can save your tonsils if you get adjusted by chiropractors. Babies don't have to have them cut out. A malfunction occurring, let's rip out the organ. Meanwhile, leaving the body in the stress position or stress state, not correcting the underlying cause that initiated the theory that we needed to remove the organ, thus the body is prone to more diseases later in life as well. Do you follow me? Give them antibiotics over and over. Yes, they're carcinogenic and cancer-causing. DNA damage occurs because of the antibiotic. But give them antibiotics over and over and don't find out why your child is always sick. Their immune system doesn't work properly. Guess what? Cancer grows in that environment. So they have one strike against us already at an early age. And then we give them a carcinogenic, cancer-causing chemical to kill off the bacteria over and over again. And then we don't replenish their good bacteria. And we don't say, hey, we don't understand why the body couldn't fight this infection off. Let's figure that out before they go on to the next infection. See the problems with our medical system? It ignores underlying causes. Tonsils removed, constipation. Constipation. Pretty cool study back in 1911. This should upset you. That we've literally said, let's just ignore that study right there. It's pretty impressive. But if you read through this study, guess what? A colectomy, cutting out, or like short-circuiting, changing nerves. Colectomy, remove part of the colon, increase oral to fecal response. I know I'm way over on time. This is going to be one of them 2-hour videos. Y'all enjoying it, though? Because I'm enjoying this information. Because the truth is, I mean, I'm learning, like, I haven't got nearly a fifth of the information I would love to communicate to the public. They removed colons of women, cutting them out. And guess what? They actually took cystic in the breast tissue of women by going to the bathroom more frequently, went away. Now, I don't want all these women with those problems or breast cancer to go out and have their colon cut out. But the reality is, cancerous and precancerous cells change in the normal tissue, and the healing occurred once they stopped absorbing mutagenic, and that's what they say is bile acids even are carcinogenic in humans, absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract. And the breast tissue, even in women that are not lactating or feeding babies, still uptake more of the things from the digestive tract, whether it's nutrition that would have been for baby if we were lactating and nursing at the time, but it could also be the bile salts and acids and the chemicals that should have been excreted if we were eating enough fiber or detoxifying and getting binders in our gut to help flush it out. Or, like me, I go 2-3 days without a bowel movement when I was a child because I had scoliosis. Got my back adjusted, that helped me go. It can be your spine or it could be your eating junk, one of the two.
What if
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be getting an MRI now. What did you say would be the better?
An MRI is okay right now.
I mean, not MRI.
It's not excessive
mammogram.
harm. Mammogram, so thermography would be what you want to do. There's no, from all this information, there is no benefit of a mammogram, okay? And,
So I really don't need one?
no. Switzerland is abolishing it. The U.S., county by county, more death from cancer, British Medical Journal, more, I mean, one of these right here, if you look at it, breast cancer overdiagnosis over screening in Denmark. So Denmark, listen to this. We found a mortality decline of 1% per year in the screening areas. Oh, good, right? Good? No. Women in the same age in the non-screening areas, we saw a decline of 2% of mortality from breast cancer. Doesn't mean they live longer, it just means that they weren't dying of breast cancer, because if we give them radiation, chemo, or things that cause heart attack and strokes, if they die of that first, that's one less statistic on cancer. So the cancer statistics go up, but heart disease goes. Yeah. So there's another one. So if your doctor
Do what instead?
what's that?
Do what?
Thermography would be a test, and that would be a heat differential, which if I go back to the tests that I need to get online that I haven't got yet, are these like here. Only about 70% of cancers could be detected from HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. So it's like a pregnancy test type of thing, but testing the urine, and if it's higher amounts, about 70% could be detected and monitored through that, because tumor cells will produce that. Testing both for risks, there's a profile, a CEA profile test. Okay, cancer blood test could tell you whether your body's at a inhospitable cancer, it could fight cancer, or if it was in a state which cancer could develop. Those are better tests. But a lot of these, you can't get insurance to pay. HZ, definitely not, but this will test for HCG as well, and blood markers, but you can't get it unless you have cancer. Get it paid for, but you can pay for it out of pocket. See, that's the problem. We have enough information to say there's better ways, but sadly, there's not enough money in the pockets of people telling the truth to lobby or do what's necessary to get changes. Public has to demand it, or just say, I'm not paying for junk treatments, even if I can't afford to do the better tests, well, I'll just go without test. Because again, if I could say quadrupling survival from plant-based diet, from getting adjusted, reducing stress, so you had a choice, get a mammogram, not change your lifestyle. Because if you go to a mammogram and they say everything's fine, you're probably not going to change your lifestyle then. So we've harmed that person. Versus you say, why don't you just change all the lifestyle factors and eat more flaxseed and more fruits and vegetables and a lot more garlic? If mammograms don't save lives at all, guess what? Eating garlic, right now, let's have a garlic awareness month. Do you follow me? Like everybody needs to walk around with garlic breath. It's the garlic breath day. Everybody, it's socially acceptable now, one day a week to everybody have garlic breath, and you have to breathe on each other and say, ah. See, I gotta go. I'm fighting cancer. We would save more lives just by that. Like, it's so simple. But parasite infections, things like that, I'm going to put more series of videos to go through different things like that. So, Essiac tea, if you read about, just Google and look on Amazon for Essiac tea in different places, and I'll have links to these types of teas and herbs and things like that on my website in the near future. But it's cool how many people say, my doctor told me I was going to die, I started drinking this tea, and I'm still alive, and now I have grandbabies. When she was told before she even had children, I read about a woman who was told her doctor told her she would die. Wouldn't make it more than a couple years, has grandbabies now because of that tea. Aloe, phenomenal, different wild plants, I'm building the list, dandelion, turkey tail, ginseng, things like that. Adaptogens and immune enhancers and modulators and dandelion-free stuff. So those are your, so hopefully everyone watching, you girls, anybody going for a mammogram now? No. So I have achieved what I needed to achieve, and I believe. So now we change your mindset about that. Now go speak the truth, and everybody out here watching the video still, I know it's a long episode of information, but please, please, please share the truth. Don't just like it, because sharing the truth is the only way that we save lives. That's